Welcome to Conservative Voices Talking Points. The topic that's coming to Iowa very soon in a special session of Congress, but also nationally. Let's talk about redistricting. And for our audience, that's oftentimes not the most entertaining topics, but it has very real implications, very real effects on our voting, who potentially could win an election, right? Right back to you, Eric. Let's talk about Iowa. Do we have a special session coming up, or is it?
We do. We do. And I just saw a first map yesterday. In fact, I have a lot of clients that have been, calling and talking to me the last several weeks about, what are your predictions? And my first thing I would say is, well, we could go on all night with predictions and just, it's really pointless, to start predicting. But the first couple maps that came out yesterday, one in particular kind of, had a giant, what, I would consider the 4th district, the western, kind of U-shape, a big one, and then a real, tight Story County, Polk County, circle right in the middle for the 3rd district. And then, kind of a similar 1st and 2nd districts, somewhat similar to what they look like today. So with these maps coming out, now, the Gentry, Collins, and Eric Branstad types are very interested in this. And, it's still too early to say. I'm a big believer in having watched, at least the last 2 redistricting in Iowa. I trust our system. I trust our leaders running it. I trust our Supreme Court. So these are all things that I feel confident about Iowa doing right. And making it as fair and solid as possible.
Isn't Iowa a model for the rest of the country?
It is. It is. Gentry knows this much better than I do.
So I guess, let's see, it would be 2 decades ago now, in the early 2000s, I was a legislative staffer, and one of my areas was redistricting. And of course, the technology has changed in the last couple of decades, but Iowa is a bit of a model around the country in terms of redistricting, because we have a system in place with its own flaws, to be sure, but there's been an attempt over the last several decades in Iowa to say, let's try to wring some of the political interest out of this, and let's come up with a system of standards, plug those standards essentially into a computer program, that then will draw the lines based on those standards, rather than based on incumbents' interests or partisan interests. Whereas most other, and there are a few other states that do it that way or have similar systems. I think our system is better even than commission systems in other states, because those commission systems are still subject to a human eye and a human hand drawing those maps, and of course there's some bias in all of those. The Iowa system is not without flaw, but you'd have to put it in the very top tier of redistricting processes.
It's based off percentages of people, right?
Right, and not breaking political subdivisions, and and geographic compactness to the extent it's possible, though it isn't always possible, and those kinds of standards. I'd have to refresh on the whole list. There are a number of those standards. And then our legislature gets that map, and it's an up or down vote. I think it goes through. So if it's a no vote on a first map, then the process starts again. I think they go through that 3 times. Ultimately, it ends up with the Supreme Court if they don't agree on House, State Senate, and congressional maps. And then, of course, that happens down at the precinct level for county and local offices as well. So whatever the warts and flaws, it is, I think, a system that Iowans can be proud of. It yields less partisanship than most states, and is responsive to what it should be, frankly, which is that we have a one-person, one-vote system in this country, or so we say. And I think Iowa's system really does it as much justice as any other system in the country. One last thought on that. The parlor games that we all love to play, and Eric is right, this is like fantasy football for me. Right?
Exactly.
But they are relative to other states where it is a partisan process, and so if you're part of the majority party, speculation can become reality. You might actually be able to put a finger on the scale. In our state, I think the speculation is worthless, right? That there is a technical process that will be gone through, and if anybody tells you they know what those maps are going to look like, they're either a fool or they're lying to you.
So if they get this House bill through the Senate bill, isn't that all mute? Aren't they trying to federalize elections? And so then it wouldn't matter as much?
They're not trying to federalize redistricting, I don't believe. They're trying to federalize the conduct of the elections once you draw the lines. The bigger concern as it relates to redistricting is the conduct of the Census Bureau. The census has always been a count, right? As it should be. And about 10 years ago during the Obama presidency, and now it rears its ugly head again with the Biden presidency, or Obama 2.0.
2.0.
This ugly idea that if the federal bureaucrats don't like the count, right, if it doesn't meet some woke standard, that they will go in and they will change the count. They'll, by modeling what it should have been, right, what some academic in their ivory tower believes it should have been, they'll ignore the count and they'll model. Now, this count has been done for months, and yet we are past the point in the Iowa process where, by the statute, I believe it should already be at the Supreme Court.
Or by the 15th, by September 15th,
but they're not,
yeah.
date, right? Right. This should, in a typical cycle, this should have been done in general session, right? Back in the spring. Why was it not? Because the federal government was doing something to the data since Biden became president, right? So we didn't get a count. We got some form of modeling. Now, what form of modeling that is, I don't know. I'm not sure anybody can say. But you want to talk about tinkering with the outcome of elections in ways that are unfair.
Well, having been an SES level federal government employee at the Department of Commerce, over working with the Census Office and their crew, which is part of the Department of Commerce, I can see why it's so messed up. I really can. It was a constant battle working with the career folks, and I can only imagine what they did to those numbers and the hard work that we had done over the last 4 years to make it a successful census.
Yeah.
Because they can't win, right, Gentry? They don't have the ideas, so their ideas are perpetrated by ill will, cheating. We'll get one over on them.
Their power.
Their power.
We don't like the numbers, so we'll model them to
change
what the numbers should have been.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right? I mean,
But trust us.
I thought math was a bad thing. Didn't we just talk about that?
Well, you got to be in Oregon.
In Oregon, it's bad.
Oregon, it's only bad there.
Oregon doesn't like math.
No redistricting in Oregon, right? There's no
What a
math
hateful thing, by the way, if I can take us back
Go
to
ahead,
that.
go ahead.
To say that I think what the policy actually says is that we're no longer in Oregon going to require any level of math proficiency in order to graduate from high school, okay? And so what are we doing? We are consigning a generation of kids
to nothing.
to failure,
Yeah, absolutely.
to abject failure.
Whatever
to
happened to
poverty,
STEM?
to misery.
Is it
Math,
STEM
science, and
about-
reading are what we are competing against the rest of the world on, and if we take off that segment, then we will go further behind than we already are, which we're number 33rd, I think, in the world as far as educating our kids. It's only getting worse, and that this stupidity. I can't even believe we're talking about
I
this.
know.
As a culture and society, yes. But here's the sort of the human point, right? I mean, forget the whole system. The human point is this: these Democrats want us to believe, these liberals want us to believe that they're doing this out of compassion. Oh, Johnny can't handle the math.
We just
right?
saw compassion from their leader. Joe
there's-
Biden's compassion is the hell with
Exactly.
you and leave
There
it
is
behind the
no
wire.
compassion at all. There's no compassion in Afghanistan. There's no compassion in telling a kid that you can't handle math.
No.
Right? If you loved that kid, you'd bust your ass to make sure that he or she could learn what they needed to learn, that we deal with those problems in the system, wherever they are.
Yeah.
But to simply say, it's too hard, so don't worry about it, that's a hateful thing to do, not only to the society, but to
and
the
all you're
kids.
teaching your kids is to fail. That's all you're teaching your kids. Okay, I would have loved to have gone to my Algebra 2 teacher, Mr. Trusty, when I was getting a C and I needed a B to not get the whipping at home that I would have gotten. And when I went to him, I would have loved to have just gotten rid of math altogether. But you know what? I took that challenge and I made it a challenge, and that means what I had to do is I had to work hard.
And it
I
prepares
had to
you for
work hard in order to get that B, and I had to put in a lot of work, and I had to put in a lot of study, and I had to go after school hours to meet with Mr. Trustee so that I could find out what I was doing wrong to get it right. That's what I did, but I had to do it, and I had to learn it myself. And if we're giving our kids a reason for failure, then we're going to fail.
And why? My point is because there was compassion. It didn't feel like it at the moment, but somebody loved you enough to say you are worth more than you're doing today. And what is Oregon not doing for its kids? They're not telling them they're worth a damn thing.
No.
Shame on them.
Shame on them, and shame on us for not seeing all this for what it is and closing our eyes to it and thinking that they're benevolent. And they're not. They're evil people. And for us to just, well, maybe next time. You know, I was a Cub fan, and we finally won the World Series. But we keep on kicking the can. I don't even like that expression. It's just pushing reality out in front and not living with it.
You bring up a good point.